Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today it's time to have a look at the second dev server in the files segments to make sure that we haven't really missed anything. There are some updates and clarifications I want to make though from some of the videos from before. So the first one is in the general changes I didn't show the MiG-21 cockpit. So the MiG-21 cockpit was added to the game in the second dev server. Looks really nice, looks incredibly Soviet. Like it looks very similar to the MiG-19 and the MiG-17 one. They all have that general same shape, so it's lovely to see that. On top of it, when it comes to the M60A3 TTS, I keep saying tank thermal sleeve, but I know it means tank thermal sight. And I don't know why I'm doing it. I've done it twice now for some reason, and I'm going to start making sure to catch it in the future, but for some reason it's just one of those words where my brain gets a bit confused. So I apologize for that. When I say TTS for the M60A3, which is coming to the top of the Chinese check tree, I do mean tank thermal sight, not thermal sleeve. The next one is a lot of people pointed out in the general changes video that thermal sights can be used during the day. I know that thermal sights can be used during the day. I was pointing out that in War Thunder, at least on the second dev server, you weren't able to use them during the day. It's as simple as that. So I wasn't making a comment on whether historically or realistically you should be able to. I was just showing that in-game you can't. I know a lot of people were saying that, you can use them during the day. You said that you didn't. You said that you can't. So I said, well, yes, in-game right now on the second dev server, you weren't able to. But in real life, of course. You could use night vision during the day as well if you wanted to, if you felt like being blind. But obviously, thermal sights are a lot more, useful during the day than than night vision sights are. The last thing as well is when it came to the Phantom 2. I used the wrong style of bullpups, so I didn't accurately show what the C bullpups were able to. Basically, they are going to be very similar to the Bs that I showed, apart from they're going to have a massive explosion on them. So yeah, let's get into the stuff in the files. And once again, thank you to Father Gentlespie for putting this together for us, so we can have a look at the general changes and give some comments. So as always, thank you, Father Gentlespie, and thank you everyone else for the comments on the videos. The first one is a new armor type has been added. It's a glass 63.5. It's a 63.5mm thickness. This is probably either some form of bulletproof glass or it's for helicopters. One of the things about helicopters, like if you look at the new Eurocopter, it's got some really nice composite armor around it, which will stop some stuff such as 23mm, maybe even 20mm and stuff like that. But the problem is, its glass isn't modeled as armor, so you can just shoot through there. There were a bunch of changes to the F4C's FM, and yeah, it's definitely felt a lot more floaty on the second dev server. And this is just something which seems to happen a lot with these top tier jets. Flying like the MiG-21 and the Phantom 2, they don't feel realistic to me. Even in realistic, they just feel like you can cart them all over the place, which is a little bit weird. There were also changes to the F-89B's FM, mostly small nerfs. Yeah, I tried out the F-89B on the second dev server. It didn't feel as fast. It didn't feel as the acceleration was still there, and the turning was not there compared to what it was before. So when it comes to those F-89s, in my opinion, they're just going to fly like F-84s. So, you get really fast, you try and head on something, you boom away, you turn around, you do the same thing over and over again, and if you come up against other targets, such as like bombers or stuff like that, you can easily deal with them. Obviously, with the rocket one, it's going to be a little bit harder. There was no sign of the other two F-89s, though, which were found in the files earlier on, so maybe they're going to come in a later update. So I'm pretty sure they didn't make it back to the files in the second dev server. The Hawk 3 is nothing like it was before, FM-wise, and I didn't get to test it, unfortunately. Obviously, you saw the video on the first dev server, and you could just fling it around all over the place. So my guess is they've made it a bit heavier compared to what it was before, but we're going to have to see. The J7-2 and the MiG-21, the flight models have changed, so they've made better in high altitudes, but no actual thrust changes on the 21. The J7 went from the 3,350 kgf to 3,500, so they've actually implemented the difference between them. Because for me, when I flew both of them on the first dev server, they felt exactly the same. There was no difference between the two vehicles when it came to their general performance. The only difference was in my crew skills and how I was able to pull turns. So when it comes to the second dev server, looks like they've actually given the J7-2 its proper engine, which is a upgraded or better version of the MiG-21s. So therefore, hopefully the J7 now will be in its place better than the MiG-21 where it should be. The VOTOR's FM in rewards to altitude, thrust coefficients, and some other tough stuff, so they've changed a lot of stuff about the VOTOR. We'll see how it goes. And also I'm wondering if it affects all three VOTORs instead of just one of them. And yeah, as simple as that. The Swift F7 lost its air brakes. God. The Swift, right. So I was talking with Dog for Life about this. The Swift right now, its flight model seems very much not correct. And what I mean by this is its acceleration is insane. Its general maneuverability is really good, and it doesn't parallel real life at all when it comes to its general stats. So I'm kind of... It's weird because it doesn't have its missiles, you know, the very early beam riding ones. It doesn't have a cockpit right now, and also it seems like it's just kind of all over the place when it comes to its flight model. I mean, I don't know whether they copied it from another machine, but it's easily able to get to like Mach 1 nearly at ground level, and there's no way the Swift F7 should be able to do that. So it just seems odd. It seems very odd to me that this vehicle is coming out, or at least if it hits live in the state that it is, then it's going to be really good for the level that it is. And then the missiles are just going to be an added bonus, even though the way that they're going to work in game we don't know yet because we haven't been able to get a hold of them. The next one, the Admiral Hipper, changes to its hull armor health, so it's been increased and the crew count has decreased a little bit on most sections. So it's going to be a little bit harder to penetrate, but once you penetrate it should be easier to kill. And generally that's good for everything else, you know, fighting it. I know a lot of people have been talking about the dispersion of the large guns on the Hipper. All I've got to say is maybe it's time to do... We either need to do two things, right? Or maybe both. So the first one is a deep dive into the files and having a look at the dispersion of each of the guns in Naval. The other thing is to actually look historically how accurate a lot of these machines are, because people have a very odd perception of how accurate these World War II machines were. And it's normally based on they were in one event, and because of that one event, they were able to hit, you know, after so many rounds, or maybe they were able to, you know, target in after so many rounds. But the thing is, we need to do a deep dive into the history of it, because these guns are not as accurate as a lot of people are saying they are when it comes to real life. The Kern no longer has explosion damage on some sections, so same thing on the Nürnberg, so that's a decent buff for those German cruisers. I think a lot of people are going to try and play the German cruisers when it comes to update 1.91 for the Hipper, so it'll be interesting to see how they match up against stuff like the Brooklyn as a whole package. Then you got the Chinese PT-76. It got night vision, but only for the driver port. So it's just like, at least the driver will be able to see, you know, but nobody else, yeah, you're all screwed. The Leopard 2A5, it's got increased resolution for the thermal scopes, so it'll be less blurry, and the switched Commander IR with thermals, and the driver IR resolution increased. So they've just made its general, you know, the additions of night vision and thermals are going to be a lot more precise when it comes to 2A5. There's a lot of vehicles in the game around the 7780 which have really bad night vision, and it's going to be painful to use, in my opinion, just because of the resolution of it. Like, it's at least for me going to hurt my eyes. The M48A2G A2, it's get reduced salvo from 12 to 8 of grenades. The Panther 2 got the drag driver IR, 800 by 600 res. See what I mean? Like 800 to 600 res. Like I right now run 1920 by 1080. The screen that I'm operating on, the resolution is 1366 by 768. 800 to 600 res on like a 1920 by 1080 looks gank. Like it looks really gank. So it's I don't know. It's gonna be really hard for me to get used to. Like and I think I'm like maybe it's my eyes are too sensitive, or maybe I'm gonna have maybe there's like an issues with my genetics or something, but the night vision and the thermals just hurt my eyes in the game, and especially when I'm flipping between them. And I've had issues in the past when it comes to light distribution and migraines and stuff like that. So I definitely see it as a me issue, but it is going to affect me at least in quite a negative way. The Orbals, the Fiats, and also the R3s also can float. So they took all the armored cars, the Italian prototypes, and made them float, which they could do in real life. The only thing is, some of them would be powered by a secondary like well, not engine, but turbine to move them, and others they would move in the water using their wheels, which seems like a terrible idea. And also on the dev server, you could pretty much flip the vehicles if you're in the water. So I'm guessing they're going to change that by the time it hits live. Otherwise, we're going to see a lot of rocking R3s around the place. The Type 60 ATM, the gear ratios have been adjusted, so it's a little bit faster. The good old Type 60 ATM getting a nice little buff there to be more useful. He says that he might be wrong, but the Type 75 SPG might have received hull break. So I don't think it should receive hull break, because I think it's got more than the allotted amount of armor that you require. Maybe it made certain areas more sensitive than others. I mean, it's going to be really easy to one-shot the damn thing anyway, because of where the ammunition is and where the crew is. Like the whole majority of them being in the turret. So I wouldn't. It won't really make a big difference if it has hull break or not, because you're still going to shoot it in the same place. The Churchill gun carrier last gear ratio adjusted, so it's a little bit faster. Instead of 1502, it's now at 11.98. Wonderful stuff. The Challenger Mark 1 is getting the L23 APF SDS, so that's nice. And the Mark 3 is not getting it, unfortunately. So at least, it has that's a little bit of a buff to the Challenger Mark 1, which I'm not sure if it needs or if it doesn't need. I need to revisit those top-tier British vehicles and have a look at all of the stuff around them. The upper front plate of the T20 is getting reduced to 63.5. I'm pretty sure, wasn't the T20's upper front plate changed before? I definitely remember one of those premium vehicles, because what happened to it is it got upped in BR and then they changed its upper glacis. So I think this was already a change that was in the game, or if it's another change on top of something that already happened, my god, like it's losing a lot of armor. The ASU-85 has got its 800 by 600 IR vision, so that's lovely to see. Same with the BMP-1, it has 800 by 600 IR vision as well. Remember, the 800 by 600 is the resolution, so that should mean that the Chinese copy should also get it at the end of the day. The Object 685's yaw turning doubled, 10 degrees, now it's 20. Stabilizer no longer affects the speed at which it turns. So this was something that I talked about in the first dev server, which made it not as good as the 906. Basically, or at least in some areas, its speed of the general vehicle was equal to the 906, but its turret was incredibly slow compared to it, and also the reload is still slower than it. So this is a good buff to the 685, but I personally don't think it's a 9.7 vehicle. I think it's going to get Sturmed, where the Sturm came into the game at a really high repair cost and a really high BR, and now it's just at a really high BR, and I'm pretty sure it's going to get lowered at some point, because it's not performing well. And the 685 being at 9.7, like, unless you move everything up to a crazy amount, I don't know why you take this over the the MBTs that you have there. I suppose if you want a scout, but even then, you're just going to get dicked on by 2A5s, 2A4s, and Abrams. It's just not going to be fun. The PT-76B, so this is the Soviet PT-76, it does get IR vision as well. Lovely. The RBT-5 has gone up in mass. The big boy has gone up by 0.5 of a ton. The Shilka also gets IR vision for the commander and the driver, so that's lovely. Hopefully, with this IR vision, it will... I think it'll take a while for people to get used to it, but it will enhance the game. The only problem is the haves and have-nots issue, which is one I've talked about in the past. The problem with adding night vision to the game is there will be a lot of vehicles which don't have it at certain BRs, and if you increase the amount of night maps that you see and you're in a vehicle that doesn't get night vision, then you're just screwed, unless you know how to diddle with the post FX settings or the gamma correction of the game, and you shouldn't have to do that to have fun. The Fab 500 M54 was nerfed, so the mass of the bomb has gone down from 501 to 487, and the explosive mass is decreased from 234.9 to 201. So that's a big change. 30 kilos worth of explosive mass gone is not something to sniff at. That's a decent chunk, That's like what, 15%, 12%, something like that. That's bad. Then the added 500 FAB 500 M54 is now added to China, so that's probably on the SU. Oh god, I forgot its name. The rank 1 SB2M, I think it is. The U105 or whichever one they're getting from the Soviet tech tree. The DM63 has been nerfed, so penetration of all ranges decreased quite a bit by approximately 50 millimeters on each range. Ooh, that's not good. That's very much hurts the CM11, but it still means that at 9.0 it has a really good round. I think that round is now worse than the Type 87 one, though. Oh, sorry, the Type 74 one, which is a bit of a shame. The 120mm OBL-11 cannon accuracy increased. Fun times. Less dispersion is always good. The 155mm Type 75 cannon HEVT shell changed. Arming distance increased from 50 to 300. Speed increased from 565 meters per second to 580 meters per second. Proxy radius increased from 5 meters to 7 meters. So this pretty much kills it against tanks, and it also makes it more realistic. So you can't donk people who are right next to you. You have to wait 300 meters for it to be armed. And if the round explodes 2 extra meters away from a target, at 7 meters, it ain't going to have the same explosive damage as it would before at 5 meters. So that pretty much means that that round is only going to be useful against very light targets or against aircraft. And what is nice, though, is they did add the new HE shell, which you can see here, which has, once again, a bit of increased muzzle velocity. It's got more boom to it, but it's got less penetration. That, at least to me, seems much better than the HEVT shell right now. The Mistral AAM has been nerfed. The thrust vectoring decreased from 0.005 to 0.002. That hurts it a lot. I should have tested it on the second dev server. The two really good missiles right now, or the three, like the SRAMs, the Mistrals, and the Stingers, and to see them get hit is kind of sad. So the Igla, which I didn't test on the MI35M, just because I didn't get around to it, it's been nerfed. So the thrust vectoring is decreased from 0.005 to 0.0025. The locking range has been fixed, and it can lock on from 5 kilometers, now instead of 1 kilometer on all aspects. Can you imagine? Like, there'd be no point in bringing it in. You'd already be dead by that point, because, well, you're a helicopter. The FFAR Mighty Mouse drag coefficient has been decreased by a lot, actually, so from 0.002 to 0.0002, and the Hellfire 114B cumulative damage buffed from 300 to 600, so doubled. That is scary now. That's obviously going to be quite good. when it comes to the amount of damage it can do. The M61 Vulcan accuracy has been tripled. Now, I use this on the dev server, the little Vulcan machine, the Ground Forces AA. It's incredibly accurate. Like it is, before people were calling it a laser, now it is a laser. So you ain't gonna get away from it if the person using it is very accurate. Now there's at least a decision to make between it and the Sergeant York, where before the Sergeant York was just superior because of its top tier shell. So yeah, I think it's very fun to use, and I tell you what, in night battles, gonna be wonderful to use. The Swift Mark 1 no longer costs 390 KRP and is now reduced to 99k. So that's lovely, hopefully if you want to keep it at 390 and just give it a cockpit, I'd be fine with that. But bringing it down to 99, at least now people will research it. And the new HE shell that we talked about, we had a look at in the Type 75, the general changes video, just because it was kind of interesting. And yeah, the HE shell is called the Type 75, which is a bit odd, unless that's historical, but I don't know why you would call it Type 75, since everything else is named differently. So those were the changes that were in the files compared to what we saw on the dev server. I'm definitely going to test out the Hawk 3 when it either comes to live or if we get a third dev server, which would be highly unlikely. We generally don't get that. But anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Blackie, Daniel Stanton, John Ryman, Joseph Anders, Martinez, Mopar 1969, Moxie, Super Cacti, Uyans Terry, and Elove Goats, and of course Seductive Trash Can for supporting the channel.